Kia ora tātou. Well, great to have you all with us as we get again gather around our quarterly updates. And so we'll open in a moment with a karakia and then the agenda, and then we'll hear from Sarah and go through there. So let's begin with our karakia. Mauri oho, mauri tū, mauri ora, kia tātou, haumi e, hui e, tai kia. Kia ora tātou. Again, really appreciate you taking the time to join in with us today. On screen, you can see the agenda. We'll hear from Sarah, our Chief Executive, in a moment, and then we'll catch up with Ginny and the Consumer Care Obligations Compliance progress, and we'll close out with a discussion around distribution connection pricing and the reforms there with Janet. As always, really keen to hear and interact with you. So if, as we go through the session, there are questions that you have, you'll see in your Teams tool there's a little Q&A button, so you can use that to just drop a question in. I'll keep an eye on the general chat as well. And with each of the presenters, we'll take a moment at the end. If questions have come up through the discussion, just lodge them in there. And then I'll put those questions to each of the speakers at the end. And as we always say too, if we wrap up the call and the moment we sign off, you instantly think of a question you really wish you'd asked, reach out with us when we share the notes and keep in touch. And we're really happy to follow up on any other questions or more points of information you need. So with that, let's get underway and welcome Sarah. Sarah, it's great to have you with us again today. Really appreciate you creating the opportunity for us to sit down and speak together at the end of another financial year. And I'm sure that there's been a lot you're reflecting on as we get to this point.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. And kia ora koutou. It's good to, not that I can see all of you, but it's good to have you all here. Yeah, so another big year for the authority, but for the sector, for everyone really. I think some of the things that I reflect on that have occurred in the year, the Frontier Review was obviously released. The government announced stronger powers for the authority. We have seen some change in our board. Obviously, we had 3 board members depart at the end of the calendar year and 3 new ones. And people will be aware we've also just had the announcement of our new chair as well. So some change there. And other government announcements like the dry year regulatory framework. And of course, the authority's been busy delivering our program of work as well. So there's been a lot happening, as there always is.
And Frida, while we're talking with Sarah, maybe if we could stop sharing the slides and we'll come back with the others. Thank you. Yeah, that's a lot of activity, Sarah.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of activity, but I guess what really matters and what we think about as we do all the work that we've been doing is what difference does it really make? It's not just about delivering a bunch of activities, it's about the impact that makes. And at the end of the day, it's really about making a difference for New Zealand consumers. So that's what we're focused on. One of the big things that we had a real focus on for part of the year, or for the year, was giving consumers more choice and more kind of control, if you like, over their power. And so we made a whole lot of decisions over that time and implemented some of those decisions to support that. So things like decisions about accessing time of use pricing, which obviously gives people the ability to shift their use of power, which can really help with their managing their own bills. Also, some fairer rates for people who are selling power back to the grid at peak times, and those things give people more control and also help the wider system as well, because it is about that wider system cost that can benefit everybody. We have worked on clearer, more understandable bills, and that obviously implementation of that's ongoing. We've worked on tools like our new comparison and switching service, Billy, which we launched at the end of March, and that's really obviously about helping people to get good information to help make good decisions and ultimately work out whether they can get a better deal. So a lot of it's been about improving information for consumers as well. And really what we're trying to do is make the system work better for consumers, rather than consumers having to work hard with such a complex system.
Thanks, Sarah. And at the same time, the authority's also been quite focused on strengthening competition as well.
Yeah, so obviously people will be well aware of the work we've done in terms of the level playing field. So that's been a really important focus in final decisions in the financial year, and so, implementing that is a key focus for us ongoing. We've also had a really strong focus on reliability. So there's been lots of work there to help keep the lights on. We've established the emergency reserve scheme, which will obviously provide that kind of extra layer of protection in times of stress. We improve forecasting for wind and solar, which helps the system operate more efficiently. We strengthened the information that's available to the system operator, which again helps managing risks earlier. So all of that's been about, I guess, helping the system to be more resilient, more reliable, and that benefits consumers obviously as well. When I think about, the things to support and protect consumers, we've also had a lot of work ongoing on our consumer care obligations, and Ginny's going to give an update on that, which I think will be really helpful. And we are also monitoring the market more closely. We're collecting in more information. We're doing more and more monitoring work and surfacing that for that transparency, which is really important, but also taking compliance action to back that up. So really, really important that the rules are supported by good monitoring and good enforcement, which is a really important part of what we do as well. So yes, I think a lot of activity, but it is all contributing to those really important outcomes for consumers.
Thanks, Sarah. And it's quite a bit to reflect back on in that season of ongoing and significant change across the system. But looking forward, shifting our focus, what are some of the key things on your mind as you start to look ahead?
Yeah, so I hope that people will have had an opportunity, if not yet, to have an opportunity soon to have a look at our recently published Statement of Performance Expectations, because in that we sort of talk about what's coming for the year ahead and what the authority is going to be working on. But what we've tried to do with that and with our broader kind of work is to say, well, what is happening in the system? What are the biggest challenges and opportunities? And how does that then translate into priorities for us? And what I'm about to say won't be a surprise to anybody who's got any involvement in the sector. We're certainly in a period of change. That change is more intense and more, I suppose, more rapid at the moment. But there are things that have been happening for a while. So we're seeing renewable energy becoming cheaper, and obviously gas has been less available and is more expensive. At the same time, we are starting to see that demand increase. So what we've been talking about for a while is that with electrification, we will see increasing demand. And so as we get more electrification and we get more demand for electricity, obviously we need to keep increasing the supply as well. And with that increased supply, as you will all know, a lot of the new generation that's coming to market is wind and solar. And that is great in terms of the benefit it can bring for lower cost electricity, but it does mean that the system is more complex to manage and more dependent on the weather. So those things need to be factored in. We do need to see investment in the system, not just in generation, but also on things like storage and flexible demand, and new technologies to help keep things reliable, but also affordable. That efficient system is really important. So as a regulator, we think about all of those things that are happening and what's our role in making sure that the benefits get through to consumers. And it's really about, shaping the system, shaping the way that we're navigating that transition so that, consumers benefit. And so we've been thinking about that and thinking about, as we come into this new financial year, what that means for the work that the authority needs to deliver with the support of industry as well.
Thanks, Sarah. And traditionally, you've had a really strong focus on affordability and reliability. Has anything changed there?
No, so those things, affordability and reliability, are still really important for the authority and for everybody. When we talk about affordability, I guess what we're really talking about there is making sure that electricity is generated and delivered at the lowest cost over time for New Zealand consumers. So you'll sort of see that reflected in that SPE as well. And then in terms of reliability, we want a system that's secure and resilient, that can handle shocks, and is supported to keep the lights on and meet people's demand. So it is about balancing both of those things, running the system efficiently, but at the lowest possible cost in a way that is, is reliable. So, so the shorter answer would be yes, those things are still important.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. And is there anything else new that you'd like to signal?
Yeah, well, I've mentioned already that we've published our SPE, Statement of Performance Expectations, and again, really encourage people to have a look at that. What that does is, as I've said, it describes the sort of what's going on, and then what do we need to do? What are the big challenges for us to be focused on? And we've landed on 5 strategic priorities that give us that really clear direction, and that's what our work hinges on. And they're still adaptable, because obviously a lot of things can happen over the course of the year. So we need to be attuned to that, but have a pretty clear set of things to focus on. And so there are only 5 of those. And the first one is about strengthening the wholesale market. I don't think that will come as a surprise to anybody. That's been a focus for a little while, and all the things that are important in terms of the wholesale market, accurate pricing, risk management tools and incentives, competition and building confidence in the market. And, what we want to see there is continuing that drive of investment, both in generation, but flexible and firming resources as well. And that's about supporting security of supply and putting downward pressure on prices. And so there's a whole load of particular pieces of work that will support that priority, but that's the first of our big 5 priorities. The second, in no particular order really, I suppose, is strengthening system security, and that's about supporting the power system to consistently match supply and demand, and to operate within safe limits with this sort of increasing share of intermittent inverter-based generation and increasing distributed energy resources as well. So with that kind of changing mix of what's generating our electricity, we need to make sure that the system can cope. And again, lots of work underway to support that. The third one is about enabling flexibility services and flexible resources to efficiently firm renewables, and to keep balancing the system so that we're getting that reliability at the sort of lowest cost over time. And we've talked about this a bit, but it's about making sure that the total system costs are as kind of low as they can be over time, because that will help ensure that everybody gets the benefit of that. So flexibility is a really important area of work. Fourth one is about supporting network efficiency. And again, this is something we've talked about for a while. I don't think that will surprise anybody, but there's work underway in terms of standardisation across distribution companies, both in terms of the price and non-price aspects of connecting and so on. So also making sure that non-network solutions can be part of the mix and considered appropriately as well, because again, that total system cost will benefit from those sorts of things. So really keen to see a bunch of work delivered under that. And then the fifth one is about being a strong, responsive regulator, and this speaks to the things that the government talked about in terms of additional powers for the Electricity Authority, and the importance of us, I guess, monitoring, enforcing compliance with the rules, and making sure that consumers are supported with good tools and information to help them making good choices. So, and of course, our work in terms of protecting consumers as well. So quite a lot of work that will sit under that. And I guess what I just wanted to emphasise for people is the work program that we've published as part of our SPE, it sits around those 5 priorities, but also over time, as we get into that work, we will of course always be looking at what solutions will have the greatest net benefit for consumers, and so we continue to adapt and evolve through the year, but those 5 strategic priorities really guide our work.
Thanks, Sarah. That's clear. There's a lot of work ahead, but there's also a real opportunity to shape the future of New Zealand's electricity system together.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've been saying this for a few years now. We, as the authority, can't do this very important role without everybody's support and engagement, and that means the industry, it means consumers, it means other parts of government. We all need to work together to deliver this, and I want to thank everybody who helped engage with our work over the last year, and I look forward to engaging with everybody over this coming year as we deliver on those really important pieces of work. It is something that we need to work together to solve for the benefit of consumers. So, yeah, really looking forward to it.
Brilliant, Sarah. Sarah, we don't have any specific or really tricky questions for you in the chat, but really appreciate your time with us today. And as we've indicated, if there are things that come out of what Sarah shared, or if you look through SPE later on and have other questions, just let us know and we'll follow up. But Sarah, thanks for your time with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Cool. And thanks, Frida, for your help with the slides. If we could get our slide, we'll switch Jenny in. Thank you. Jenny, rough camera, just sit and slides. Oops. Thanks, Frida. And Frida, if we could go to slide 8, please, as we introduce Jenny. So, Kia ora team, I think most of you have met Jenny before, who Jenny or her team have attended almost and presented at almost every one of the quarterly updates. But Jenny, it's great to have you back with us again today. Jenny's the manager for consumer compliance and is going to talk us through some of what's happening in the consumer compliance operations space. So, kia ora, Jenny, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Carl. So yeah, we actually have presented at every single one of these since we started them off, I think.
You guys are our VIP presenters.
Just over a year ago. But yeah, I'll just take a few minutes to discuss the annual reporting for the consumer care obligations. So retailers will be aware that the consumer care obligations came fully into force on the 1st of January in 2025. And on the 1st of July this year, we opened our second reporting period for the consumer care obligations. And so that covers the period from 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2026. So electricity retailers, they are invited to start completing their consumer care obligations compliance reports, and these are due by the 30th of September. So recently, the authority directly contacted retailers about how to access and complete the reports. So aside from providing the annual reminder to complete the submissions, we also have highlighted a new process to complete those forms. So previously, retailers would have logged into the information provision platform, whereas now retailers will create a log on and then they'll log into a dedicated compliance area of a website. And you can see a sample of that on the slide. So I'd like to encourage retailers to create their log-on and ensure they can actually access the annual compliance report. Given that we have switched to a new platform for reporting away from the information provision platform, we just want to check retailers do have access to that reporting. If there are any issues with the access, then we would like to work with them to resolve that as soon as possible. We have checked and we can see there are still actually 26 retailers who are yet to create a log-on and check the annual reporting. So we'll send out a reminder next week, and then if they still haven't logged in, then I'll directly contact those retailers just to follow up with them. Another reason we're also wanting retailers to log on sooner rather than later is that we know that a lot's actually asked for on these reports, and it can take time to collate all the documents required for uploading. And we don't want retailers to be in a rush in September when that reporting period finishes at the end of the month. So these annual compliance reports completed by retailers, they do actually help the authorities to assess how retailers are implementing the obligations. We also check ongoing compliance and we identify improvements where needed. The reporting strengthens accountability across the sector, and it also helps ensure consumers receive the standard of consumer care expected under the obligations. So the authority will publish a report summarising the findings after reviewing all reports, and our intention is to publish this around the end of this year. If you are interested, we did publish our initial report on the 2024 and 2025 reporting period in January this year, and this can be located on our website if you wanted to read that. Any failures to submit a report or any non-compliances identified through the reporting period will be looked into by the consumer compliance team. and we'll check to see if a breach of the electricity industry participation code has occurred, and then if so, what engagement or compliance action may occur by the authority. If you do require any further information or guidance around particular clauses of Part 11A of the code, which obviously covers the consumer care obligations, we do have retailer guidance that can also be located on our website. If you have trouble locating either document, please contact my team on the email listed on the slide, and we will be able to point you in the right direction. Next slide, please. So I'd like to also touch on medically dependent consumers. Would like to remind retailers to advise the authority that as soon as they become aware of a disconnection with a post-paid customer, that they must let us know using the prescribed form we have available on our website. We did write to retailers earlier this year reminding them of their obligations around this, and this was primarily driven by the fact that we were concerned at the length of time it was taking for some retailers to contact us. The longest time frames we saw between disconnection of the consumer and the authority being advised was a number of weeks, whereas our expectation is to be advised as soon as the retailer is aware of the disconnection. So realistically, we expect this to be within minutes or hours at the most, using the prescribed form. We had wondered from some of the reports we received if some retailers might be wanting to complete their own investigation prior to letting us know of their disconnection. And while we realise you may not have all the answers at the start, we would prefer to have the notification, as we know further details can be provided to us further down the track. The timeframes by retailers to advise us have now become shorter, which we do appreciate, but we did want to provide the reminder yet again of the obligations to let us know as soon as the retailer becomes aware of a disconnection. And as a general update, since the 1st of January 2025, when the obligations came into effect, the authority has been advised of 28 disconnections, with 4 progressing to a formal investigation. We announced these investigations on our website, so if you are wanting to find any further information on these investigations, please check the investigations and rulings section under the code and compliance section on our website, and you can see more details around those investigations. Next slide, please. Continuing on with the theme of medically dependent consumers, we wanted to highlight to retailers we have noticed a trend over recent months of consumers sending their completed medically dependent consumer status forms directly to the authority and not back to the retailer. When we looked further into this, we noted it was spread across a number of retailers and with consumers spread across the country. The authority is planning to amend our website and make it super clear to consumers that the completed form must be sent back to the retailer. This slide shows the downloadable status form for consumers we have on our website, and you can see where we have placed in red for the consumer to send the form back to the power company when completed. I'll mention that, of course, that when we have received these completed status forms here at the office, we have sent them directly onto the retailer. But I did want to highlight this trend and just ask if retailers could have a check of their website and make sure that from a consumer perspective, their website was very clear that the completed form is to be sent back to them and not onto the authority. I'm also asking if retailers consider if their staff can be reminded that when they are speaking to a consumer about completing their status form, that they remind the consumer verbally to send the status form directly onto the retailer and not onto the authority. Next slide, please. And then just lastly, from the compliance team, the Electricity Authority and the Registry Manager, which is Jade Software, are hosting 2 Registry Manager user courses this year. These courses are designed for people who are new to the industry, and it also provides an introductory course to the registry. The authority will cover details on the code and industry, while Jade Software will cover details around the registry. We will be performing exercises to add and update ICPs from the view of a distributor, trader, and an MEP. You can see that there are 2 courses being held this year. One is in Christchurch in August and one is in Wellington in November. Over the 2 days, participants will gain an understanding of how the electricity industry operates, including key industry processes, operational practices, and regulatory requirements. And the courses will provide practical insights that can be applied in day-to-day roles. The sessions are interactive, and include industry scenarios that participants will discuss and analyse using the course material. The courses are free to attend, but places are limited and they are filling up. To register, please email my team, again on the email listed on the slide, and let us know which course you or your staff members would like to attend. These courses have proven very popular in recent years, and I would recommend letting us know sooner rather than later of your interest, as previously we have ended up with people on a shortlist to get into the courses. So Carl, that's all we have for the consumer appliance team, and I'm happy to hear of any questions that may have come up online. Otherwise, I'll just hand back over to you for the next speaker.
Kia ora, Ginny, thank you. So no specific questions relating to the consumer care obligations topic. Just acknowledging Gemma's question in the chat. We'll come to you, Sarah. So Gemma's asked a question about Sarah's reference to the strategic plan direction of the authority and when that will translate into visible workflow or calendar activity. So I'll take that back to the team. So kia ora, Gemma, appreciate that.
Yeah.
And we have a question from Sarah asking about whether there are courses in Auckland, Ginny.
We will be holding courses, but not till 2027.
Okay.
The only courses this year will be Christchurch, as mentioned, in August, and then Wellington in November.
Yeah, so keep an eye out for that for Auckland-based bill for 2027. And again, as Ginny said here, regarding the courses, but also other questions, just feel free to keep in touch with the team at consumercare@ea.govt.nz. And Liam would like to know where to find a bit more information.
Yeah, Lena, if you can just, the easiest thing to do is just send an email to my team at consumercare@ea.govt.nz. They'll forward that on to me, and then I'll email you back, and I can provide you with a lot more detail on what the course covers over each day.
Awesome. So if others would like the same info, just use that same link, and then Ginny can reply to you as a group.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Yeah, awesome. Ginny, really appreciate you doing this again.
Thank you.
Obviously, it's an ongoing piece of interest for everybody.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you giving us some days.
Right.
Have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Cool. And let's go to the next topic, please, Frida. Thanks, Jen. Kia ora, Janet, come on in, and just want to welcome now Janet Humphries, who's the Manager of Network Pricing at the Electricity Authority. And Janet's going to talk us through some of the further reform work that's underway, particularly regarding the distribution connection pricing. So Janet, appreciate your time with us today. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Carl.
Over to you.
Thank you.
And Frida's helping us out with slides. So when you'd like to go to the next slide, just say next slide, please, and we'll bring it up for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janet.
Kia ora. I just want to take a few minutes to update you on our work to improve distribution connection pricing, in particular the issues paper that we've recently released around further reform of connection pricing. For those who haven't been closely following this project, connection pricing is about how distributors recover the costs of new and upgraded electricity connections. As more homes, businesses, EVs, charging infrastructure and industrial users connect to electricity networks, getting these arrangements right becomes increasingly important. We're interested in making connection pricing methodologies more efficient, more transparent and more consistent across the country. Ultimately, we want connection pricing arrangements that support efficient network investment, reduce unnecessary barriers to connecting and deliver good long-term outcomes for consumers. The work's been underway for a few years now. We first began exploring distribution connection pricing issues in 2023. Since then, we've been progressing a multi-stage reform program. In earlier stages of the program and our network connections program have resulted in improvements to connection processes. The fast-track connection pricing measures that came into force on the 1st of April this year, and more recently, the targeted intervention framework based on the balance point principle. Those changes address some immediate issues and they provide greater transparency and consistency, but were never intended to be the final word on connection pricing. They were designed as early steps where we considered whether further reform might be needed. And that's what this issues paper is about. Next slide, please, Frida. So on this slide, you'll see some of the major topics in the paper. The first major topic in the paper is costing methodologies. Putting that simply, it's about how distributors determine the cost of providing a connection. We've heard a range of views over the course of our broader connection pricing project about matters such as the transparency of costs, differences in costing approaches, the treatment of risk, and how costs are allocated to particular connections. The issues paper asks whether there's any areas where greater consistency, transparency, or assurance may be beneficial in this area. You'll also see allocation methodologies, and that's the second core area in this paper. And this is about how connection costs are shared. In practice, this means deciding how much is recovered through an upfront connection charge and how much is recovered over time through ongoing lines charges. Different approaches can affect who pays, when they pay, and how network costs are shared between new and existing consumers. So the issues paper seeks feedback on whether there's value in moving towards more consistent approaches for allocation, and if so, what those might look like. Next slide, please. Beyond costing and allocation methodologies, the paper also explores a range of other issues that have come up through earlier stages of the project, which include the boundary between connection costs and broader network development, pricing for other one-off events such as modifications, relocations, disconnections and withdrawal of supply, secondary networks, and real estate developments, whether they require different treatment, and financial security requirements. Importantly, we're not presenting a preferred solution on these topics. In each case, we're interested in understanding whether there's a problem, how significant that problem is, and whether any further response is needed. Next slide, please. The paper also seeks feedback on a number of related issues where we know that stakeholders have got strong views. So one of those issues is contestability, including whether current arrangements appropriately support competition and the supply of connection works and equipment. We know that's an area where access seekers, developers and others care deeply, so we'd really welcome feedback and evidence on that topic. You'll see on the slide we're also looking for views on large connections and whether tailored pricing arrangements remain appropriate, in-kind contributions, invested assets, and more generally, whether the current framework overall is working as it's intended to. At this stage, as I said before, we're trying to build the evidence base and develop a better understanding of where problems may exist, how significant they are, and what responses may be appropriate. We're coming to this with an open mind, so we're very interested in your feedback. Next slide, please. This is just a quick slide looking at how future regulation might work in practice. So we're asking, for example, when should we rely on principles and guidance, and when should we use more prescriptive rules? What role should assurance, monitoring and certification play? And how do we strike the right balance between consistency and flexibility? These questions may sound less exciting, but they're actually really important because they affect how workable the framework is in practice. Next slide, please. And this is just a slide to cover off the timing and why we're doing what we're doing when we are. So one question that we've heard is, why are we consulting on this so soon after we've introduced the other connection pricing changes? The main reason is the timing that's outlined on this slide. If more substantial reforms are ultimately considered appropriate, we do need enough time to properly develop them, consult on them, and allow distributors to reflect any changes in their planning processes. There's a close relationship between this work and preparations for the Commerce Commission's next default price quality path, which starts in 2030. And starting this conversation now gives us sufficient time to do the work properly. Next slide, please. So, what we'd like to hear from you. We want feedback. We're interested in hearing whether we've identified the right issues in the paper, whether there are issues that we've missed, what evidence or practical experience stakeholders can share with us, and which areas that we've talked about in the issues paper should be prioritised. We're particularly interested in practical examples. We know that people experience connection arrangements in different ways, and lived experience can be just as valuable as technical or economic analysis in helping us understand in which areas further work may be needed. We're also very open to discussing issues with people who may not wish to make a traditional submission. The next steps for this paper, submissions close on the 24th of August, with cross submissions closing on the 17th of September. All of the consultation web material is available on our website, and we'd really encourage anyone with an interest in connection pricing to take a look and share their views with us. If you do have any questions or issues, we'd be really happy to hear from you at distribution.pricing@ea.govt.nz. That email address again, distribution.pricing@ea.gov.nz. So we're really keen to get your feedback to help shape up the next stage of this work. And I'll stop there and hand back to Carl now.
Awesome. Thanks, Janet. And so again, as Janet said, all of the resources and materials, all the inputs you need on this topic, the issues paper, are all online on the authority's website. So that's www.ea.govt.nz. And if you want to dialogue directly with the team, you can do that at distribution.pricing@ea.govt.nz. So quite, again, a few ways to interact with us and get in touch. And as Janet's indicated, really genuinely after people's thoughts, feedback, suggestions, critique, and other ideas. So really welcome your engagement with us. Janet, there are no specific questions at the moment in the chat or in the question box. So let's go to wrap up from there now. But again, really appreciate your time with us. And I know you and the team are available if you want to interact directly.
Absolutely.
And if from the slides, I know there's quite a lot of details on the slides today. The session's recorded and we make the recording and the slides available to everyone who participates after the event. So if you feel like there was a bit of detail you might have missed, don't feel any anxiety around that. You'll have the recording of the session available to you very shortly. So let's close out with a karakia together. And again, just really genuinely appreciate you all taking a moment out of your day to engage with us. So, he karakia a whakaka. Kia whakarea te tapu. Kia wātia ai te ara. Kia tūriki whakataha ai. Kia tūriki whakataha ai. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Kia ora tātou. Stay well and warm out there. We'll see you again soon. Thanks, everybody.